Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy to have you here this Thursday morning for a great session on integrating Google Classroom and the SIS. My name is John Shoemaker, and I'm from the Department of Educational Technology. I'm here just to host today and do some emceeing, while our special guests will actually be sharing the content today. So we want to first thank you so much for joining us. We're happy to have you. Well over 200 now, so we're excited to see that. So thank you for being here. We do have a little bit of housekeeping we do want to share. So as I stated in the chat just a few moments ago, this course was actually added on last week. There is no ELM course. It is just simply an extra class for you guys to learn how to do this because we were able to get it accomplished, and we know you guys want this. So it does not count for your buckets for your summer PD. So just keep that in mind. We do have trainings next week. We have 6 live streams that we're going to be doing next week on Google Classroom, the whole Google Suite, SLSO, Blender, and more. So that's all in ELM or on our website. So those will count for the buckets. There are people in the chat box who are moderators. They have wrenches next to their name. So they'll be the ones helping answer questions because we're actually on a delay of up to 30 seconds. So what will happen is we are not easily able to get to your questions. We'll try to get to questions live, but we may not make that. So with that, over on the right-hand side, there is a chat box where you can communicate. Now, if you're on the app, it's a little different. You'll have to figure out where the little icon is to show the chat. Or if you have your screen maximized in theater mode, the chat's kind of in the down right corner. You have to scroll down a little bit. But what we want you to know is that you can participate in the chat. If this is your first time joining us, we're not using Google Meet. We're using YouTube Live because we know we're going to reach more than 250 people. So you can actually click in the bottom of the chat if this is your first time, and it will ask you to verify your YouTube channel, which you're fine doing. That's just with your district account, and then you'll be able to chat with us. So please feel free to use the chat for questions, comments, collaboration ideas. We're all here to help you and support you in any way we can. This session is live, and it is being recorded. However you got here, the same link will bring you back to this recording, and it'll also be posted on our website as well. We're also asking if you just click that like button down below. That gives us a little bit more information to YouTube that people are liking this video. And feel free to subscribe as well. Like I said, we have 6 live streams next week. And then after that, we actually are going to start live streaming in September too on some other integration topics that you'll be interested in. So please feel free to subscribe. And if you hit the bell, it'll actually notify you every time we go live. And everything that we're doing will be on our website too. So thank you again for joining us. And with that, I'm going to introduce our special guests today. So first, we have Dominique, and we also have Angela. So ladies, do you want to introduce yourselves, and I'll let you guys take over.
Hi everyone, I'm Dominique Wicker. I'm on the EdTech team. I'm so happy that you guys attended today, and hopefully you can take something back that will make your jobs easier.
Hello, I'm Angela Schmidt. I'm from the FTE department, and I'm here to help you with all of your SIS needs in the gradebook, where Google Classroom and SIS, the integration come together.
All right, so before we get started, just want to kind of recap. We had a live stream on Monday, and we went over rostering. Today we are going to focus on syncing assignments and grades. So if you are an elementary teacher, this webinar may not be applicable to you because the grading has to be numerical. In our elementary classrooms, we use standards-based grading. So if you are here specifically for rostering, I want to show you where you can view those resources. So your main point of contact is going to be through your portal. You're going to go to SIS. And then down here at the bottom, you're going to click on SIS Resource Center. And then this 4th link, SIS integration with Google Classroom. And go ahead and click on this link. And also, there are going to be some moderators that will drop this link directly in the chat in this YouTube video, so you can access it easily. But down here towards the middle, where it says Series Part 1, this is the webinar we did on Monday. This is specifically talking about creating Google Classrooms and rostering them with the SIS Gradebook. So if you missed that, or if you need to refresh, this link will live here and it will be on YouTube in perpetuity. The second link is a link to the webinar that we're doing right now. This is also the page where all the resources will live. So this little blurb here just gives you some benefits about this integration, rostering students automatically, and then what we'll see today, how to integrate the gradebook with your with your Google Classroom gradebook automatically. These are all of the guides. So we will be doing live demos based on these guides. So they are broken up into grade levels. So elementary, these 2 guides are applicable to you. And then secondary teachers, these guides down here, there's about 6 of them, are applicable to you. So they cover the rostering, and they also cover the assignment and grade syncing. And then at the bottom, these are all the ways that you can receive support. We recommend that you reach out to your school support first. So your school techs, your gradebook manager, and any trailblazers. That's going to get you the most effective and timely support. And always, we are here to help you. For any SIS needs, you want to email this email address here, and anything for ed tech related to this integration, as far as Google Classroom is concerned, you can email myself or my colleague, Teresa Miller. And so I'm going to take it over to Angela, and she's going to get started with syncing assignments.
Hello. So today we're starting in your SIS Gradebook. I already have my SIS Gradebook pulled up on the screen here, and I'm inside the Gradebook. You'll notice first on the left-hand side, you have the sync class has already been done like we did in the last webinar. That's how you know you're ready to start adding assignments. You click Add Assignment, and you have the option to either create independent assignments that are not linked to the Google Classroom, or you can create assignments which are linked to the Google Classroom. So I'm going to create an assignment first that is not linked. I add my title, the points, my assignment category based on what I set up for my weighting and categories in SIS. I decide whether I'm going to include other periods or not under the checkbox for your other sections that you have. Make sure to set the assign, the due, and the publish date. In third-party system, you won't want to do anything. This is how you set up an assignment by clicking Save that is not linked to the Google Classroom. You have the option of doing both, linking or non-linking. You'll notice if you look at the current assignment that's already in the in my gradebook, there's a little Google Classroom icon on the classwork one and no icon on the assignment one. That's how you tell the difference between a linked class and a non-linked class. Next, we're going to go and add another assignment, but this time we're going to link it to the Google Classroom. Just like with our prior assignment, we're going to add the title, the points, the category, whether or not we want to add it to other sections that we teach, updating the assigned date, the due date, and the publish date when necessary. Under third-party system, you're going to click Google Classroom, and then you're going to click Save. This warning just pops up saying it's outside of the calendar window, so on non-school days or weekends, you'll see that pop up. You just click OK. It just warns you that your assignment's not within the window. All right, now you can see assignment 2 has been added. And if we pop over to our Google Classroom, and look under the classwork, you can see those assignments have now popped in. Assignment 2. And you notice assignment 1 is not in there because it was an unlinked assignment. All right, moving back to our gradebook. I want to show you when you're creating assignments, you may get 2 possible errors. The first error is a due date error. So I'm going to give it a title, points, assign it a category, make sure it's in my Google Classroom because I want to have them linked. And then over here, I'm going to make the due date today and change the publish date to yesterday. Anytime you keep your due date today, you will get an error when you save. This is because your due dates must be in advance. You'll see the due dates must be in the future. In order to fix this error, you simply click on the I to edit the assignment detail and make sure you change that due date to a future date. If you do not do this, it will not sync to your Google Classroom. So now that I've saved it with a future due date, my error has disappeared. Another error you might encounter is a publish date error. So for points, I fill in the points, I fill in my category, I make sure I'm attaching it to the Google Classroom and select the sections I want to attach it to. Now your publish date must be a prior date. It cannot be today's date. So if I set my due date in the future and I make my publish date equal to that future date and save, you'll see another error here that says the due date must be greater than the publish date. They cannot be the same day. So if your due date is tomorrow, your publish date would have to be today. Just like we fixed the due date, we simply go into the detail, change that publish date to the day prior to, hit save, and the error will go away. Now we can go back to our Google Classroom and check as it refreshes, and we can see those assignments are added in. All right, moving back to our SIS Gradebook, this was showing you how to do new assignments where we take the assignments, create them in the SIS Gradebook, and then push them to the Google Classroom. If you have existing assignments in your Google Classroom that you want to add to your SIS Gradebook, that can be done as well. That's what we're going to show you right now. So when you click Add Assignment, all the steps are the same as if you're creating a brand new assignment that's not in your Google Classroom. You give it a title, you enter the points and the category, make sure that it's synced to Google, select your sections, and you'll notice every time you select a Google Classroom, if you have unlinked assignments in your Google Classroom that aren't linked to SIS, this linked assignments box will appear. In that linked assignments box, you will have all of the assignments that you've made in your Google Classroom that are not linked to your SIS appear here. When you link them, they will disappear. So I'll first select the classwork 2 here. And remember, the same applies with the due date and the publish dates. So I'm going to put that in advance. Click Save and OK. Every time that you link an existing Google Classroom assignment to your SIS, you'll get a warning message that appears on the top of your screen that looks like this. This is not an error message. All this message is telling you is that the assignment title, category, and points may not match in your Google Classroom because those are items that aren't fed back and forth. So whatever the points are worth in your Google Classroom or whatever category you give it, those things need to be matched in your SIS if you want them to. But here you don't have to have them match as well. All this warning tells you is that those things cannot be matched automatically. You have to make them match. As soon as I hit Sync Class, you'll notice that error message will disappear. Well, the warning message, I'm sorry, it's not an error message. I know they can get confusing. And then you can continue to add in the rest of the assignments that you have in your Google Classroom that aren't linked. I'm going to put my exit ticket in, make sure my date is tomorrow so I don't get that error. Save. Okay. And just like with the last one, you'll get that warning. Just ignore it. It's just a warning for you. Our vendor is working to reword it so it doesn't look so weird, and it lets you understand that it's just a warning that those titles aren't going to match unless you make them match. All right. We're now going to go over to Dominique, and she's going to show you more in the Google Classroom about how you can grade, and then we'll come back to the SIS Gradebook after that.
Awesome. So before we start with the grading feature, I just want to talk a little bit about topics. I see a lot of questions in the chat regarding the categories and the topics. And I just wanted to kind of explain what happened. So Angela, if you could go back to the SIS Gradebook for just a moment. Can we bring that up?
Yes, I have it up.
Okay. John, can we bring up Angela's screen?
Yeah, hers is up on the screen. Go ahead.
Okay. Perfect. So in the SIS Gradebook, when you go to add an assignment, there are the grading categories, and most of you use those for weighting, like homework, classwork, participation, things like that. When you link an assignment from SIS to Google Classroom, so what Angela did first, when you create the assignment in SIS and not create it in Google Classroom, those categories that you select, once the sync happens, you're going to see those categories do one of two things. Let's say, for example, you chose the category classwork. Once the sync happens, if you do not have a topic in Google Classroom called classwork, it will create a topic for you named classwork. And that's what happened here. We didn't have a topic before named classwork, but because we synced it with SIS, and we made the assignment in SIS, it made that topic for you. If the category that you select in SIS does already exist in Google Classroom, then it will move that assignment to the appropriate topic category. So this is kind of different than what we're used to. Most people create their assignments in Google Classroom first. We know you have the option to do both with this integration, but I just want you guys to be aware that when you do it in SIS, initially, it will either create a new topic if that topic doesn't exist for the category that you selected, or it will place that assignment within that topic if it already exists. So for example, with assignment 2, it created the projects topic. If, for example, you organize your Google Classroom by units or by chapters or by standard, and you don't want a topic named category, all you have to do is just drag that assignment to the appropriate topic. So if I wanted that to be under the water cycle, I just drag it under the water cycle. And if you go to edit the assignment, it changed the topic for you. Okay, so just one little workaround that you have to do if you are creating the assignments in SIS and syncing them and pushing them out to Google Classroom. What will happen though, let's say I moved assignment 3 as well to unit 1. Even though these two assignments now have different topics, the overall topic for projects will still remain in Google Classroom. There won't be anything there, but it will be there. So you can either leave it there and have nothing posted under it, or you can delete the topic altogether by deleting it here. But the next time that you sync an assignment and you create it in SIS first and then push it to Google Classroom and you select project as the category, for example, it will just do the same thing. So if I were you, I would just leave the category there, because if you continually sync things, it's going to reappear. And just tell your students to don't worry about it, just ignore it, and it'll just be an empty topic. Okay. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out. It is kind of a complicated topic and it's sort of hard to explain, but once you start to use it and get into the groove of things, it will become more apparent what it actually means. Okay, so let's get to grading. So in Google Classroom, again, if you are new to Google Classroom, new teachers, new to our district, this is your dashboard. So if you want to grade something for a particular class, you just click on that class and then go to the grades tab. And it actually looks a lot like SIS in regards to how it's set up. That's not on purpose, it's just a coincidence. But you have your assignments going across the top here, and then all of your student names will be here on the left-hand side. We only have one student in this class, which is why you only see one name, but if you had 30, you would see 30 here, okay? And then to grade, so let's say I wanted to grade exit ticket number 1 for Gavin. I would just hover over his name for that particular assignment, and you're gonna click the snowman, the 3 dots, and then you're gonna click View Submission. And this is going to bring you to what's called the grading tool, and it opens in a new tab within the same window, and it's kind of a one-stop shop for grading. You have the submission that the student turned in, and over here on the side, I'm gonna go through each of these. You have some really key things that you need to in order to grade student work in Google Classroom. So over here, we have, obviously, you can enter the grade. So if it's out of 100 points, you just put what the student received. So if they got a 95, you put a 95. As soon as you enter a grade here, it will reflect in the grade book. So you can see now Gavin has a 95. So it's kind of like a Google Doc. As soon as you make a change, it automatically saves. It's kind of the same scenario. Also, in the grading feature, you can click on this snowman and you can change the total points. So for example, let's say this assignment was originally 100 points, but now I want it to be only out of 50. You can change that here. And what that will do is it's going to change the total points for for the entire assignment. So everybody's points will now go from 100 to 50. And then you just click change and it will change it. So that's the grading. Here are private comments. So if you want to give students feedback, good work, good job. If you want to give them, something else to do, another task, maybe they didn't turn in number 1 or something like that, you can add a private comment. And when the student clicks on that assignment, they will see your comments listed, okay? You can also leave comments in the actual document. So if I click here, just as our comment bank, there are already some automatically generated comments that Google has for you. So if you're grading, for example, a paper that the students turn in, an essay, and you find yourself using the same comments over and over, like use punctuation, make sure you capitalize, anything like that, you can actually add your own comments to the bank. And add it there. And then every time you encounter a spelling error, you would just highlight what you want to comment, and then you can add the comment there. So it's a really nice way to not have to reinvent the wheel and continue typing the same comment over and over again. And you can just reuse these. And again, there are some that are automatically generated, and you can just keep adding as many as you want here. So that's the comment bank. So after you have given the student the grade, you've given them feedback via comments or adding a private comment, you can go ahead and return the file to the student. Now, the return feature is really key with this integration, especially when Angela goes to show you how to sync the grades. If you don't return the assignment to the student, the grade will not be synced. So for some of us, we put grades in Google Classroom, but we don't always return it to our kids. I know I was guilty of that. You have to, otherwise their grades won't be synced. So you have some options. If you want to return each student submission as you go, so after you grade Gavin, you immediately return it to him, you can do that. Or if you want to grade all of the assignments in one batch and then return them all to the students at one time, you can also do that. So if I just want to return this to Gavin, I'm just going to click return. But if I want to return it to, say, all 30 of my students at the same time, after I've graded all of them, I can click here, and then I have the option to return multiple submissions. And you only see one student here because we only have one student in this class, but if there were 30, you would see all 30 students here, and you could literally check all their names and then click return. So personal choice, again, if you want to return one by one, if you want to return in a batch. And then once you're done with Gavin, you can move on to your next student by clicking this drop down, and all of your students and their submissions will appear here. Again, we only have one student because Gavin is the only one in this class, but if there was another John Doe here, I could click John Doe and his Google Doc would show up along with any other attachments that he or she attached will show up here, and I can go through the same process, enter the grade, add private comments. I can add my comments here using my comment bank, and then after you do that, you will again add your grade here and then return it to that student. Okay. So this is the recommended way to do grading. It's really simple because, again, it's a one-stop shop for everything student submission and all of your grading features for comments and for feedback. You can also do grading outside of the Grades tab by clicking on an individual assignment. So if you click here and then click View Assignment, you get what's called the grading pane, and all of your student submissions would be here. And then you could click on, their name and enter their grade, and then click on the snowman. And if I hadn't already returned this to Gavin, I would have the return option as well. And then any of their submissions would appear in this pane here. And then if you click on them, it actually opens that same grading tool window that I showed you earlier. So different ways to do it. Again, I recommend going straight to the Grades tab and then accessing the student submission this way. Okay, so now Angela is going to show you how to actually sync those grades now that you have graded the assignment in Google Classroom.
Hello, everyone. Before we get started on syncing the grades, what I want to do is clarify some information about the categories. It doesn't matter. I know there was a lot of questions about where do I start? Do I start in Google Classroom? Do I start in the SIS Gradebook? It really doesn't matter if you start your assignments in Google Classroom or if you start them in the SIS Gradebook. It's the same process as you saw to link them both. So it's basically your preference. But if you go to your Gradebook categories and assignments in your SIS Gradebook, this is where you set up your SIS categories. Now, if you have a weighted gradebook, it's going to make it slightly more complicated because you usually have less categories in your gradebook when you're weighted than you do. So you might want to consider changing the way that you categorize things in the Google Classroom to match. The best scenario is to have these categories match. If you're a non-weighted course and you don't use weighting in your gradebook, then you can make all the categories in SIS match all the categories or topics that you'd want to use in your SIS gradebook. Your Google Classroom. It's best if they match. That way you don't have to drag and drop and change the topics and have blank topics and have that confusing. But when you're weighting, you have to keep them grouped into those category weightings. So for example, I can't have unit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and have each weighted 5% because then it could add up to more than 100%. So I'm sure you understand what I'm saying there. So when you have weighting, you need to be very careful to make sure that your assignment categories are very carefully thought out in your Google Classroom. Ideally, they should match, but as Dominique showed you, that's the workaround or the way that you'll have to do it if you decide not to make them match. So if you decide to go by units, instead of making them match, you're going to have blank things or have them move around and stuff like that. I hope that clarifies some of the questions that were in the chat box when Dominique was going through that. Let's go back to the gradebook here. Once you've done all of your grading in the Google Classroom, in order to make those assignments update, the only thing you have to do is click Sync Class. The system will go through every one of your students and all the assignments when you click Sync Class, and it will update all the grades that you returned. It will also look to see if you have any new students added to your roster, and it will send invitations to those new students, inviting them to your Google Classroom. Depending on how many assignments you have and that you need to sync, it may take a little bit longer, and it'll give you information here that says that your invites were sent and your grades were synced. You simply close that out. The screen will refresh itself and pop in those grades. You can see the exit ticket 95 is what Dominique did. If we go back to our grades and we grade all the assignments, and of course return them, any of the ones that have been returned. So I'm just going to do these two so you can see classwork 3 and classwork 1. I'm going to pop back over into the SIS Gradebook, click Sync Class. It's going to, again, look at all those assignments, what's been updated since I was in there last. Let me sync what needs to be synced. As soon as it's finished, it will pop up that message box letting you know everything has been synced. You close it out, the refresh of the screen will happen, and it'll pop in those grades that you returned. It did not pop in any of the grades that I did not return. Now you notice classwork 2 isn't on my list, even though I returned it to the student. I did not link it to my SIS Gradebook, so therefore it has not appeared. I must then add the assignment, classwork 2, add my points, it's classwork, third-party system, select my sections. Oh, it was the 3, I'm sorry, classwork 3 was the one I graded. Make sure the due date's in the future, click publish. It will then add that assignment to my gradebook. Sorry for the wait. Remember, whenever I bring them over from the Google Classroom, I get that strange error at the top, but you'll see the grade was automatically synced here. All right. Now, another thing Dominique talked about was changing points in the SIS, in your Google Classroom. She changed the points on the exit ticket, I believe it was. Let's go back to the SIS Gradebook and find out. It must have been, maybe we should change it back. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and, as she said, change the assignment. Oops, can't do it that way. Let's see, exit ticket. Hey, Dominique, can you pop in?
Yeah, so.
After I return it, am I not allowed to change the points? Is that what's happening?
No, if you click on, click exit ticket 1, yeah, and then click edit.
All right, perfect.
Yeah, that should work.
All right, so I'm going to change these points here to 50 points, right? Rubric change. And save, update. So that makes that out of 50 points. Go back to my grades, make sure it's on 50 now. It is, perfect. And if I go back to the Google, to my SIS Gradebook and click Sync Class, I refresh that grade. All right. And you'll notice that you got that same warning message saying that the information couldn't be passed back through. And if I look at the details on this exit assignment, it has not changed the points in SIS. So you need to be very, very careful. If you make any changes on points in your Google Classroom, you must also make that same change in points on the SIS side.
Angela?
Yes.
So the point and the other piece of that is kind of the opposite. So for the grade, so if you go back to Gavin for your gradebook for a minute and show Gavin's grade in Google Classroom. So right now for exit ticket 1, Gavin has a 95. If, let's say Gavin comes to me, he's like, oh, you made a mistake, I should really have 100. If I change that in SIS, because that's kind of what we're used to doing, SIS is where the final grade should live. If Angela changes Gavin's grade in SIS, but she doesn't change his grade in Google Classroom, and she resyncs it, the Google Classroom grade for Gavin, which is currently a 95, will override whatever change she'd made for him in SIS. Am I correct, Angela?
That is correct. So I didn't get to that part yet. That was my next part there. So if I change this to a 45 here and save it and then return it and go back to my class here and sync. I've now updated my points, making a match 50-50, and then I'm going to sync in his assignment. It'll change it to the 45 once it loads. But if I go in here and I make this a 50, because I'm like, oh, it should be a 50, it came to me, and I hit save, then I go back to my Google Classroom, it will not change the grade here. The grades only work one way. They work from the Google Classroom and sync it to the SIS. It will not sync SIS to the Google Classroom for grades. So the changes must always be made inside the Google Classroom.
Right. So and so the next time she syncs it, that 50 in SIS is going to turn back to a 45, even though the 50 is the most accurate grade.
Exactly. So right now I just hit sync again, and you'll see that that 50 will no longer be a 50. It is now a 45.
45.
Okay. So the last thing that I'm going to show you today is about unlinking an assignment. Unlinking an assignment does not really exist in the SIS and Google Classroom. In order to unlink an assignment, meaning you no longer want it to appear in the Google Classroom and SIS together, you want it to be like this assignment 1 where we made it non-linked. If you want it to be like that one, you have to replicate the assignment first. So I create an assignment and say exit ticket, add my points in, 50 points. It's going to be classwork. I'm not going to select third-party system because I do not want it linked. Make sure you select your sections and anything else you want to add, description, assign date, due dates, click save. Because we're just creating a regular assignment. Once you add that new assignment that you're planning on replacing the one you want to unlink, you then take the current grades in your SIS gradebook and move them over to that new assignment. So for Gavin, he has 45 out of 50. So I'm going to put that over there, put save. Now I can delete both the assignment in SIS and the assignment in the Google Classroom. The only way to unlink is to delete. So I click on the I on my exit ticket. I click delete assignment, confirm the deletion, click delete assignment again. That assignment is now deleted in the SIS gradebook. I come over to the Google Classroom. I take the assignment and I delete it. Delete. That is the only way to unlink your assignments in the SIS and Google Classroom. When I go back and I hit sync class, I will not get any errors, and it will sync the class on the remaining assignments that are already linked. And you'll see my exit ticket did not change because I deleted it. All right. That is the end of our secondary gradebook and grade transfer integration for the SIS and Google Classroom. John, maybe we can get to some of these questions.
Yes, for sure. The question we always get over and over and over always is this being recorded? And the answer is yes. We shared at the beginning if you came a little late. We are live on YouTube right now. But whatever link you use to get to this website right now that you're on is the exact same link that you can use to watch the recording. It's also going to be on our website. We have a specific page dedicated to the SIS Gradebook integration that has been shared in the chat box. All of that is there for you guys to have that support too. So yes, you can rewatch this 1,000 times, pause it, practice, do what you need to do to learn how to use the integration. So there were some questions. I'm going to see if I can grab a couple here. And there we go. That was that one. So is there a way to add multiple grades in Google Classroom at a time? And I believe the answer to that one is no. I don't believe there's any automated way. Dominique, correct me if you have an idea.
So adding more than one assignment at a time, is that the question?
No, adding more than one grade you can't do like everyone gets 100, right, in Google Classroom, I don't think.
Not in Google Classroom, not that I know of, no.
Yeah, no, that's not possible right now.
No.
Also, there's questions about syncing, which is more about the other session. But if a student was in there and now removed, you guys want to share about that?
So they were in the Google Classroom and now they're not in the class anymore, or they're... Yeah. Okay, so
maybe they're in the SIS and then they got a schedule change. What happened?
So when you sync the class, and again, if you didn't attend the last webinar, make sure you watch that to understand how to roster. But the sync is one way. So if a student, for example, was in your period 5 and you sync your gradebook to your period 5 Google Classroom, and now that student's a part of that Google Classroom, but now they're in period 1, so they're not on your period 5 roster anymore in SIS. They will still remain in the period 5 Google Classroom. You will have to manually delete them from that Google Classroom. The next time, however, that you sync your period 1 class with your period 1 Google Classroom, that student will automatically get an invitation because they don't exist in the Google Classroom as of yet. So you just have to manually delete them, but the addition, once they move to a different period, will happen automatically the next time you sync.
Here's an interesting question too. I don't know the answer to. So what happens when the 9 weeks change? Do we know info on that yet?
Well, when you change your quarters, you get a blank gradebook. So everything that is in your gradebook will be added. So you'll have more assignments for those dates. When you sync your Google Classroom for the second quarter, it will also sync quarter 1 grades. It's going to sync all assignments. It doesn't have I'm only going to sync this or that. It's a full sync on every assignment from the Google Classroom to the SIS Gradebook. So if there are changes made, it will affect your gradebook. So make sure if you make any changes in the Google Classroom for prior quarter assignments that you know that will affect the student's final quarter grade, but it won't affect the posted grade, just the gradebook grade. So you'll have to make those determinations if it changes the grade enough to affect the teacher change request on the final grade as well.
Yeah, so there's no real way that Google Classroom actually does quarters. It's really just one big grade book. So those are some things you have to keep in mind as we're going along. Still just trying to see if there's any other questions. If you saw any, let me know that I may have missed.
I saw one it's very specific, but I thought it would be worth showing. When I talked about the comment bank, I forgot a very important piece of the process.
Well, I'll put your screen back up. Go ahead.
Okay. So if you're going to use the comment bank, let's say I want to add a comment for this. Go ahead and highlight it, and you can click the plus sign. And when you put in the pound symbol, it brings up a drop down of all of the comments in your comment bank. So if you want to please check your spelling, you just click that and then click comment. So those of you who are wondering, that's how you can utilize this.
Interesting. There was also a question earlier, I think I answered right, but I'm not sure. It was regarding a graded quiz with a Google form. So technically, if a teacher creates a quiz in a Google form, it will put the grade in the Google Classroom gradebook automatically. And then you would be able to then just sync, and that grade would be able to go into the gradebook, right? That workflow sounds correct, does it not?
Yes, and I tested that, but I tested it like, let me go back here.
That's okay. I just wanted to see if you got an idea.
Yeah, create and then quiz assignment.
Yep.
So if you do it that way, it generates the the form, and then
And you have that grade importing right there down at the bottom. Right. Yep.
Yep.
Awesome.
That will work.
There's a question from Maria about grades going with students when they change periods and teachers. That has not changed. I'm not sure if on the Google Classroom side that does anything, but in the SIS side, it does not. So teachers will have to transfer those grades manually. That nothing.
I don't believe it goes in Google Classroom either. No. It doesn't follow because the assignments aren't there.
The only thing that follows them is they have a guardian attached to them that stays with the kid's Google account essentially. So if they move, it moves with them, but nothing else.
Okay, we also, since it was mentioned, real quick, I just want to throw this in here. Since it was mentioned about the quizzes, someone on our team found some interesting hacks that students are doing. So just so you know, that the kids are sharing ideas on how to hack the quizzes in Google. So basically, there's a YouTube video out there. You can just watch it. But they can get every answer to your quizzes if you make a quiz in a form. So just keep that in mind. They're going to be able to get them all right because if it's multiple choice, because they just look in the HTML of the website, and for some reason, the right answer is actually coded in the website. So we are going to mention that to Google when we talk to them because it's kind of just something you need to know. So go ahead, Angela. Next question.
So Robert asked about if we sync with the Google Classroom, will those students who don't have grades get zeros for not being there? If there's no grade in the Google Classroom, then no grade will be transferred to the SIS. If those students in your classroom at that time that you did the assignment, what you can do is give an asterisk in that SIS Gradebook side to exclude them from the assignment.
Awesome. All right. Sorry about that.
What else do we have? Andy is asking if we have 150 or more students grading a simple assignment one by one. Oh, they're talking about the math assignment.
And that's something too that we will be we have on our list to talk about with Google. So yeah, for sure. Talking about moving classes, we talked about that.
And it's it's just important to know that Angela said it earlier, you don't have to sync every single assignment. So if it's not feasible to do so many grades, it may just be, make more sense to not sync it with your Google Classroom and just have it like we had before last year, 2 separate assignments essentially. So just make that choice for yourself.
I think it's also, this one's kind of an interesting question. I think it's important and I say this every time I do a Google Classroom training, the Google Classroom gradebook is not the grade for the student in the class. And I think you need to make that clear to your students. And that's especially true if you're not going to sync all of your assignments. Whatever's in the SIS is their grade. It's not the grade in Google Classroom. And I know it can be easy for students to forget that. But, if you're not syncing everything, whatever's in SIS is the grade for that student. So, again, Victoria, you cannot hide any assignments in Classroom right now. I believe the only option is delete. You can't even archive them. So, so that's not going to work for that one.
Does the Google Classroom have the ability to do weighted grades? I didn't see that it did.
Sure.
As far as I know.
Yeah, they're just standard grades. Patrick had asked about the weight. Now, if you make your categories match, the topics and categories will match between your Google Classroom and the SIS Gradebook. But there's no way to set that weighted grade in the Google Classroom to make it match the weighted grade in SIS. Your SIS grade or the grade that the students will see on their gateway, that's their final and true grade, not the one that's in the Google Classroom. I hope that helps answer your question, Patrick.
Tanya, I will post a link again for the first session. So for some of you who may have been confused at the beginning, part 1 will actually walk you through how to actually link your SIS to your Google Classroom. So that's actually the first step in all of this, is to link your classes. That will also help you roster your Google Classrooms as well. So the link is in the chat for part 1. Feel free to watch that whenever you want. Again, same thing, that's there forever. Feel free to share everything. And the question is, can you just sync the roster and not the grades? Yeah, you can. If all you want to do is roster your class and not use this grade piece, that's perfectly fine too. The rostering is very helpful though, I think. And this is just kind of an added benefit for secondary too.
Right.
I think the rostering is the most powerful part of this integration. Again, because we don't have to disseminate codes or emails, and it just makes it a lot easier. So if you don't use anything else, definitely use the rostering piece. Yeah.
Definitely. And if we didn't get to your questions, because there were so many, I know all the moderators are going in there, but you can reach us if you have anything SIS related. SIS Gradebook support is where you can find the answers to that. Send an email and they respond immediately to that. And anything on Google Classroom side, how to set it up, or anything related to only the Google Classroom, you have Teresa Miller and Dominique that will help you with that.
For sure. So like we said, the first line of support, try to reach out to your gradebook managers, your trailblazers, your school techs. But if you still have questions, specifically around the SIS integration piece. So general Google Classroom questions can come to most of the training team, which we'll share at the end. But if it's SIS specific, that would be Teresa and Dominique. But if it's SIS side of the integration, that would be the gradebook support. Otherwise, we'll get you to the right place anyway. So if you the wrong person, we will find the person that needs to go to. So with that, ladies, I'll bring you guys right back up at the end to give you the last word. But I'm just going to share real quick a couple of things, and I think I may have messed up and left something in the slide deck I shouldn't have, because yep, I did. So today's Thursday, so we actually already had our office hours for today, last hour at 10 o'clock. But we're going to be having office hours almost every Thursday. We won't have it next week, but we'll have it 2 weeks, because next week, like I said, we're doing streaming. But we have office hours, and basically what that means is a couple of ed tech specialists hop in a Google Meet. We share the link on our website, and you join us for questions. And we try to answer as many questions as we can. If there's no questions, we have some people that just join us and lurk and just pay attention and watch all that fun stuff, and just learn from other people's questions. So it's a great time. We're there to help. We always have someone from our SMART team in there too to answer questions about SLSO and all of our SMART panel stuff. So again, that's not today, and it won't be next week, but the following week we will have office hours again. And again, just so you know, for resource teachers, this is coming back. For resource teachers, you're not able to actually add students to your SIS, so you wouldn't be able to practice this until you actually have students. It's basically the people in the grade book. You have to have classes assigned to you with students. So just wanted to answer that question that came through here. Again, we have office hours. Please join us. Also, like I said, we have 6 live streams next week. We would love to have you join us for Google Classroom, the Google Suite. We have some SLSO intro and advanced, and we have Blender, and there's one on the 4 Cs. So those are all great sessions next week. We're going to be streaming 3 on Tuesday and 3 on Thursday at our website. That website, again, is edtechtraining.palmbeachschools.org, and that is where you can get all of the information on what we have. And we actually updated the homepage, so in the top right corner of the front page, we're actually letting you know the most updated pages, because there's so many pages on our website now. We want you to see the most up-to-date information and what we're updating, especially because Google is going to be updating all of their products a lot here very shortly. So especially Meet each month, the next 3 months, Meet's going to be updating dramatically. So what we will be doing is adding that information to our website. And then as soon as we know that actual, the update is live, we will actually host a live stream sharing what's new, whatever day it comes out. So all of that is on the main page of our website. I see questions about what day each training is. It's right there on the calendar on the main page, and those courses are actually in ELM as well. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We do have our training team here, so if you do have questions about all EdTech integration training, that's the training team and our Twitter handles. Please feel free to follow us on Twitter. We're going to be doing monthly Twitter chats as well, so we would love to have everyone joining us. And with that, I'm going to allow Angela and Dominique to have the last words and say thank you and sign us out.
All right, thank you everybody for joining. Again, if we didn't get to your question in the chat, or if you find questions that you didn't get answered, later on down the line, please feel free to reach out to any of us, and we'd be happy to help you.
Yes, and I also wanted to mention that if those of you who want to look at this and not have it affect anything, if you want to go into your SIS training environment, you can kind of build assignments in there and play around without actually having your students really see it. So always remember you have that SIS training tile to use. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.